It's funny how someone can say they hate you while tucking a blanket over your shoulders when you fall asleep studying. Or maybe it's tragic. I still can't decide. Ethan Gray was the kind of guy people wrote love songs about and then swore they'd never fall for again. Captain of the lacrosse team, 6 feet 2 inches of confidence and arrogance wrapped in a leather jacket. An alpha who made every other alpha look like they were just pretending. He walked through the halls of Westbridge University with that effortless dominance, a quiet storm in sneakers and cologne. And then there was me, Julian Hart, the Omega transfer student who somehow ended up sharing a dorm room with him. No, it wasn't fate. It was a system glitch. That's what the housing office said when I showed up and found a single bed, a leather jacket on the chair, and a very shirtless Ethan standing there with a towel around his neck. "You've got to be kidding me," he'd said, frowning like I'd personally ruined his day. "You're an Omega?" I wanted to crawl into the floor. Yeah. Sorry. I can request another room if... Don't bother. He grabbed his phone, texted someone, and muttered under his breath. "They'll fix it. Just don't touch my stuff." That was Ethan Gray, no filter, no warmth, no interest in small talk. He hated Omegas. He made sure everyone knew it. And yet, 3 nights later, when I caught a fever from the brutal autumn cold, it was Ethan who quietly left a bottle of water and some meds by my bed. He didn't say a word about it the next morning. Just turned up his music and pretended I didn't exist. That's how it started, with silence, avoidance, and a dozen small, gentle things he thought I wouldn't notice. By the end of the semester, I knew every contradiction about Ethan Gray. He called Omegas weak, but he carried my books when my wrist was sprained. He rolled his eyes when I baked cookies, then stole half the tray before they cooled. He said love was a trap, but his gaze softened every time I smiled at him. I told myself I was imagining it, because that's what Omegas do. We imagine, we hope, we fall. But then came the night everything changed. It was late, too late for anyone to still be at the library. I'd stayed behind to finish a project when a heavy storm rolled in. By the time I made it back to the dorm, soaked to the bone, Ethan was waiting by the door, arms crossed, jaw tight. "Do you have a death wish?" he snapped. "What?" I blinked. "You could have called me Julian. Or at least brought an umbrella." I laughed, awkward, unsure, surprised he even cared. "You? Worrying about me? That's new." He stepped closer, voice low. "Don't push it." Something about the way he said it, soft but dangerous, sent my pulse into overdrive. His hand brushed my hair, gentle, almost reverent, before he caught himself and stepped back. "I don't hate you," he murmured. But by morning, he acted like those words had never been spoken. The second act of our story began with someone else. Professor Aaron Reeves. He was new to the literature department, tall, mature, and devastatingly charming in that intellectual kind of way. The kind of alpha who made eye contact like he was reading your soul. I'd met him after class when he stopped to compliment my essay on The Great Gatsby. "You write like you've lived through heartbreak," he'd said with a smile. Maybe I had. He started offering me extra reading materials, late discussions about writing and love and meaning. Then, one evening, he asked if I'd like to grab coffee sometime. I said yes. And for the first time in a long time, I felt seen, not as a dorm mate, not as someone to be tolerated, but as someone worth knowing. Ethan, of course, noticed immediately. He didn't say anything at first. He just changed. His laughter faded. His teasing went quiet. The apartment felt heavier somehow. He started spending nights out with his team, coming home smelling like whiskey and cheap perfume. When I finally confronted him about it, he just shrugged. "You're free to date whoever you want, Julian." "I don't care." The lie was so obvious it hurt. 2 weeks later, Professor Reeves confessed. We were in his office, surrounded by books and the faint scent of coffee. He looked at me, nervous in a way I'd never seen before, and said, "Julian, I think I've been falling for you for a while now." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Someone wanted me openly, honestly. When I told Ethan that night, he didn't speak. He just stared at me for a long, heavy second, then turned away. "Congratulations," he muttered, his voice raw. "Guess you found someone who's not an asshole like me." I wanted to tell him that wasn't true, that I'd spent months falling for the way he laughed, the way he secretly cared, the way he tried so hard not to feel anything. But the words wouldn't come. He slammed the door behind him, and that's when I realized the sound of that door closing hurt more than anything else. The days that followed were a blur. Ethan avoided me completely. My things were moved to the corner of the room, neatly separated from his. The music he used to play gone. The small gestures gone. Even the way he used to throw sarcastic comments at me during breakfast gone. It was like living with a ghost who was still breathing. Professor Reeves, meanwhile, was everything Ethan wasn't. Thoughtful, kind, present. He brought me flowers, remembered small details about my day, and told me I deserved love that didn't hurt. So why did I still dream of Ethan's voice saying my name? Why did I still catch myself glancing at his empty bed at 3 a.m.? The breaking point came the night before the winter break. I came back to the dorm after dinner with Aaron to find Ethan sitting on the floor, surrounded by empty beer cans, his eyes red. Ethan. He looked up, a humorless smile twisting his lips. Didn't know you'd be back so soon. Shouldn't you be with your perfect professor? Don't do this. Do what? Be honest. He stood, stepping closer, his breath uneven. You think I don't see it? The way he looks at you? The way you look at him? He's everything I'm not, right? I opened my mouth, but he didn't let me speak. You want to know the truth, Julian? His voice cracked. I never hated omegas. I hated how they made me feel weak. How you made me feel weak. My heart stopped. He took another step closer, hands trembling. You drive me insane. Every time you smile, every time you talk to someone else. It's like I'm losing control. Ethan, but before I could say another word, he turned away, grabbed his jacket and left. The door slammed again. And this time I knew I might never get him back. The dorm was quiet that night. Too quiet. Even the hum of the old heater sounded like a heartbeat I didn't want to hear. Ethan's scent still lingered in the room, faint traces of cedarwood and rain. Something that felt like home and heartbreak all at once. I sat on my bed for a long time, staring at the closed door. Every second that passed was another reminder that he wasn't coming back tonight. He never did when things got too real. It wasn't until morning that I heard the key turn in the lock. I pretended to be asleep, but I could tell he knew I was awake. His steps were slower than usual, heavy. I heard him drop his jacket on the chair and run a hand through his hair. Then, under his breath, he whispered, "Why can't I stop caring about you?" My chest tightened so hard I thought I might choke on air. He thought I couldn't hear him, but I did. And maybe that's what made me do something reckless the next day. Professor Reeves asked me out again that weekend, dinner this time. A real date. A chance to finally step into something new. Something safe. I should have felt excited. But all I felt was guilt. I spent half an hour choosing what to wear, and another 20 minutes staring at Ethan's empty side of the room. He'd left early for practice and hadn't spoken a word since that night. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I deserved to be happy. But deep down, every choice I made still revolved around him. When Aaron picked me up, he smiled that calm, easy smile that always made people trust him. We went to a cozy Italian restaurant off campus, dim lights, soft jazz, wine glasses that reflected the city's glow through the window. You look beautiful tonight, he said gently as he poured the wine. I flushed. You really don't have to say that. I don't say things I don't mean. He meant it. I could see it in the way his gaze softened. And for a moment, I let myself breathe. We talked about books, childhood memories, dreams we hadn't dared to chase. Aaron was older, confident, stable, the kind of person who could make chaos feel like peace. So why did peace feel so empty? Halfway through dinner, he reached across the table and took my hand. His fingers were warm, steady. Julian, he said quietly, I know you've been through a lot lately, but I want you to know when I look at you, I don't see someone fragile. I see someone strong, someone brave enough to care even when it hurts. My throat tightened. It should have felt comforting. Instead, all I could think about was Ethan, the way his hands shook when he almost touched me, the way his voice cracked when he said I made him feel weak. I smiled, though, because Aaron didn't deserve my confusion. After dinner, he walked me back to the dorm. We stood outside under the pale light of the street lamp. Snow had started to fall, soft and slow. He leaned closer, eyes searching mine. "Can I?" he whispered. I didn't answer. I didn't move. And when he kissed me, it was gentle, careful, like he was afraid I might break. But the taste of that kiss felt wrong. Not because Aaron wasn't kind or good, but because it wasn't Ethan. When I stepped inside, Ethan was sitting on his bed, staring at his phone. He looked up just as I closed the door, and for a second, our eyes locked. His expression was unreadable, but the smell of alcohol on his breath said enough. "Late night?" he asked, voice flat. I hesitated. "Yeah, dinner. With the professor." It wasn't a question. I swallowed hard. "Yes." He nodded once, then forced a small smirk that didn't reach his eyes. "So that's official now? You and him?" I wanted to say no, but I didn't. And silence, I learned, can hurt more than any word. Ethan chuckled softly, the sound sharp and bitter. "Guess he's the lucky one then." I stepped forward. "Ethan, don't," he snapped, standing up. "Don't look at me like that." "Like what?" "Like you pity me. Like you think I'm the broken one here." His voice was rising, shaking. He ran his hands through his hair, pacing like he was trying to escape his own thoughts. "You think you know me, Julian? You don't. You don't know what it's like to want something you're not supposed to want." "Ethan, please," he stopped, breathing hard. Then, quieter, almost defeated, he said, "You should go. He's probably waiting for your goodnight text." I didn't move. "I'm not leaving you like this. Julian, go." There was no anger in his tone now. Just exhaustion. Just heartbreak. So I did what I always did. I left when he pushed, even when all I wanted was to stay. Days turned into weeks. Winter break came and campus emptied. I stayed behind to work on my final papers, and Ethan disappeared. He hadn't come back to the dorm in days. No calls. No messages. Nothing. At first, I told myself it was good. Space was good. Maybe we both needed to breathe. But every night, I found myself staring at his empty bed. The dent on his pillow still there. The faint smell of his cologne clinging to the air. Aaron called often. We talked, we laughed, we even planned to spend Christmas together. But whenever he asked if I was happy, I hesitated. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I called Ethan. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. I texted, "Are you okay? Please just tell me you're okay." No response. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, I was standing outside his lacrosse captain's apartment, still wearing my hoodie and jeans from yesterday. When one of his teammates opened the door, his eyes widened. "Julian? He's not here. He left 2 nights ago." "Left? Where?" The guy shrugged. Said he needed space. He looked pretty wrecked. Wrecked. That word hit me like a punch. Took me 3 hours to find him. He was sitting by the frozen lake behind the gym, the same lake where we used to run together before morning classes. His hair was messy, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes red. He looked up when he heard my footsteps crunching on the snow. "What are you doing here?" His voice was hoarse. "I should be asking you that." He scoffed softly. "Did your boyfriend send you to check on me?" "Stop it." I walked closer. "You don't get to disappear and make me worry." "Why?" he said, standing up abruptly. "Why do you care? You have him now." "Because it's you, Ethan." He froze. The words slipped out before I could stop them. "It's always been you." He laughed low and bitter. Don't say that. You're just feeling guilty." "Guilty for what?" "For caring. For leading me on." The silence that followed was so sharp it could have cut through ice. I took a breath. "Do you really think that's what this is? You think I'd come here, in the freezing cold, just to make you feel worse?" He didn't answer. He just looked at me, really looked. And for the first time, I saw something raw in his eyes. Fear. Not of losing me, but of believing he ever had me to begin with. I stepped closer, until there was barely a breath between us. "You're scared, Ethan. You've been scared since the day we met. Scared to care. Scared to feel. Scared to let someone see you." His voice was barely a whisper. "You make it sound so easy." It's not. My eyes stung. But it's real. He looked at me for a long time and then, slowly, he reached up, brushing a strand of hair from my face. His fingers trembled, his breath catching. I can't do this, he whispered. Yes, you can. He closed his eyes like it physically hurt him to hear that. I'm not like him. I don't know how to be gentle the way he is. I smiled through my tears. You already are. For a second, everything stopped, the wind, the cold, the world. Just him, just me, and a silence that said everything words couldn't. Then he stepped back. You should go, Julian. Please. Before I say something I can't take back. I shook my head. Say it. He met my eyes, and for the first time he didn't look away. I love you. The confession broke through the air like thunder. He said it with anger, with desperation, with every ounce of pride he'd been holding back. And then, just as quickly, he turned away. I love you, he repeated, voice breaking. And it's killing me. I wanted to run to him, to tell him I felt the same. But my body froze, trapped between the man I'd promised to give a chance to and the one who'd owned my heart from the start. When I finally found my voice, Ethan was already walking away, his figure disappearing into the falling snow. That night, I sat by the window, watching the flakes drift down like slow confessions. I replayed every word he'd said, every look he'd tried to hide. Love shouldn't have to hurt this much. But maybe that's what made it real. I didn't sleep. I just waited. Waited for a text that never came. Waited for footsteps that never returned. And by morning, I knew something had to break. It's strange how silence can become louder than any argument. Days turned into a week, then 2. Ethan didn't come back. His things were gone, his jacket, his lacrosse gear, even the cheap coffee mug he used every morning. The only thing he left behind was a single note taped to the fridge. Don't wait for me. You deserve someone better. No signature. But I knew the handwriting. Sharp, rushed. Like every word was a wound he didn't want to reopen. I stood there for a long time, the paper trembling between my fingers. It wasn't just a goodbye, it was a surrender. Classes resumed in January. Snow still lined the sidewalks, turning the campus into a quiet white maze. Everyone was talking about new beginnings, resolutions, parties. I tried to do the same. I smiled when people asked about my winter break. I studied, I worked, I pretended to move on. Aaron and I still saw each other. He was patient, understanding, never pushing for more than I could give. He'd walk me home from class, make sure I ate, tell me stories about his years teaching abroad. But whenever he leaned in to kiss me, I felt nothing but emptiness. It wasn't fair, not to him, not to me. And the worst part? He knew. One evening, as we sat in the faculty lounge sipping coffee, he set his cup down and looked at me. Julian, he said quietly, you're still in love with him, aren't you? The truth caught in my throat. Aaron, he smiled sadly, cutting me off. You don't have to explain. I knew from the start. My eyes burned. You deserve someone who can love you back. He shook his head. You deserve someone who makes you stop apologizing for feeling too much. For a long moment we just sat there in silence. Then he reached across the table, brushing his thumb against my knuckles. Go find him, Julian. Before it's too late. I didn't even think. I left my coffee unfinished, my bag forgotten, and ran out into the cold. I checked his old apartment. Empty. The team said he'd quit lacrosse, that he'd been spending time off campus. Rumor was he was helping his uncle on a farm 2 hours north. So I drove. The highway stretched endlessly beneath gray clouds. Every mile felt like another heartbeat dragging me closer to something I wasn't sure I deserved: closure, forgiveness, maybe both. By the time I reached the small town, the sun was dipping low behind the fields. The air smelled like pine and earth and memory. And then I saw him. Ethan stood by a fence, sleeves rolled up, splitting wood with slow, deliberate swings. His hair was longer, his jaw rough with stubble, his face tired in a way that broke something inside me. He didn't notice me at first. Not until I said his name. Ethan. The axe froze midair. He turned, eyes wide, and for a moment, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. Julian. His voice was rough, disbelieving. What are you doing here? I could ask you the same thing. He exhaled, leaning on the axe handle. I told you not to wait for me. I didn't. My voice shook. But I couldn't stop thinking about you. He looked away, jaw tightening. You shouldn't have come. Why? Because you think you're poison? I stepped closer. Because you think I'm better off with someone who doesn't make mistakes? His silence was my answer. I kept going. You think leaving fixes everything, but it doesn't. It just hurts both of us. He turned, his eyes dark and stormy. What do you want me to say, Julian? That I'm sorry? That I love you? I already said it, and it didn't change anything. It changes everything, I said softly. Because I love you too. He froze. The axe slipped from his hand and hit the snow with a dull thud. You don't mean that. I do. I stepped closer until I could see the tears he was trying to hide. I tried to love someone else. I tried to forget you, but I can't. Because every time I think of home, I think of you. His lips parted, but no sound came out. You said loving me made you weak, I whispered. But it doesn't. It makes you human. And I'm tired of pretending it doesn't make me whole. Ethan looked at me for a long time, eyes searching, breaking, healing all at once. Then finally he moved. In 2 steps, he closed the distance between us and pulled me into his arms. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, like he was afraid I'd vanish if he let go. I tried to stay away, he murmured against my hair. I tried so damn hard. Don't, I whispered. Don't try anymore. He laughed, breathless, voice cracking. You're going to ruin me. Then let's ruin each other. And then he kissed me. It wasn't soft like Aaron's had been. It was fire and snow and everything we'd been too afraid to say. It was every argument, every apology, every night we spent on opposite sides of the room pretending not to care. It was real. We stayed like that for a long time, just holding each other in the fading light. The world felt quiet again, but not the lonely kind of quiet. The peaceful kind. The kind that said, this is where you're supposed to be. When we finally pulled back, Ethan brushed his thumb over my cheek, smiling through tears. I don't deserve you, he said softly. You don't have to, I replied. Just stay. He nodded, then rested his forehead against mine. Stay with me then. Here. For a while. Here. I laughed. You want me to move to a farm? His grin widened. You'd look good in flannel. Ethan Gray making jokes? The apocalypse must be near. He laughed a real laugh, the kind I hadn't heard in months. And for the first time, I realized how much I'd missed the sound. We spent the next few weeks living quietly. No labels, no promises, just 2 people trying to remember how to breathe again. In the mornings, he made coffee that was always too strong. I complained. He'd smirk and drink it anyway. In the evenings, we'd sit by the old fireplace, reading or arguing over movies. Sometimes he'd reach out and take my hand without saying anything, and I'd squeeze back. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. One night, as the snow melted outside and spring hinted at the edges of the world, Ethan looked at me across the flickering firelight. You know, he said, I used to think being an alpha meant never needing anyone, that if I cared too much, I'd lose control. And now, he smiled faintly, now I think control's overrated. I leaned my head against his shoulder. Welcome to the chaos. He chuckled. It's not so bad when you're in it with me. When the semester ended, we went back to Westbridge together. People stared when they saw us, the infamous Ethan Gray, the Omega he supposedly couldn't stand, walking side by side, laughing like the world hadn't fallen apart. We didn't care. One afternoon, while helping pack up the dorm, Ethan found the note he'd left me months ago, still taped inside my notebook. He looked embarrassed, reaching to take it back. I stopped him. I kept it because it reminded me of who you were, and how far you've come. He met my gaze, eyes soft. And who am I now? I smiled. The guy who still makes terrible coffee but tries anyway. He laughed, pulling me close. And you're still the guy who drives me insane. Good. Wouldn't want to get boring. He kissed the top of my head, murmuring, Never. It wasn't a fairy tale. There were still arguments, still days when fear crept in. Sometimes he'd shut down again, old habits whispering that he didn't deserve happiness. But now I didn't let him drift away. I'd grab his hand and remind him gently, stubbornly, that love wasn't something you earned. It was something you gave even when it scared you. And he learned. Slowly, beautifully, he learned. He learned that being vulnerable didn't make him weak. He learned that I wasn't going to leave. He learned how to love fiercely, clumsily, fully. Months later, we stood on that same rooftop where it all began. The city stretched beneath us, golden under the setting sun. The same air, the same view, but everything felt different. Ethan turned to me, wind tugging at his hair. You ever think about how this started? All the time. I grinned. You were shirtless and rude. He laughed. And you were nervous and way too polite. Still am. He slipped an arm around my waist. You know, I meant what I said before. About not deserving you. I looked up at him, smiling. Good thing it's not your decision. He leaned down, pressing a kiss to my forehead. You're impossible. And you love that about me. He nodded. Yeah, I really do. We stood there for a while, watching the city lights flicker to life. The world kept moving, people laughing, cars passing, life happening. But up there, it felt like time had stopped just for us. He squeezed my hand. So what now? I smiled softly. Now? We live. We try. We love. And if we screw up, we fix it. He exhaled, content. Sounds perfect. Perfect's overrated, I said, echoing his words from months ago. Real's better. He grinned. Then here's to real. And when he kissed me under that orange-pink sky, slow, sure, unhurried, it wasn't about pain anymore. It wasn't about fear or pride or what we were supposed to be. It was about finally choosing each other. Maybe love isn't about finding someone who never hurts you. Maybe it's about finding the one who stays, who learns, who fights to be better for you, and with you. And maybe that's what Ethan and I were now. Not perfect, just real. And real finally was enough. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.